Surviving another drought means making our plants the most water efficient we can. While some of the things can be done immediately, most of the things require a long-term plan. I've heard it said that the best time to plan for a drought is when the last one breaks. We might be on the cusp of this one breaking with the recent snowfalls, but it's too early to tell. In this episode, I'll go over all of the ideas that I have to make our plants more water efficient in hopes you can apply some of the easy practices now and start planning for the future this season. So welcome to the 6th season of Plants Dig Soil, podcast about realistic regen ag. I'm your host, Scott Gillespie, and I'm an agronomist from the Western Canadian Prairies specializing in climate-smart agriculture. I discuss scientifically proven practices that benefit the planet and, just as importantly, farmers' economic sustainability. Be sure to visit my website, www.plantsdigsoil.com, for resources and information about the services that I offer for farmers and agribusiness. So whether irrigated or not, the land in southern Alberta is starting with a subsoil moisture deficit. Generally, this is true across the prairies of Canada and the plains of the United States. There are exceptions, but the overall trend is drought. It will be a challenging year in my area, even if there's a return of normal rains and excellent snowfall in the mountains. This past weekend, we got a great gift of moisture. The frost was mostly out of the ground, and some green was showing on the landscape. My tulips and crocuses were poking through. A thawed ground can take up moisture, so hopefully all of the wet snow that came will soak in as it melts. The most impactful practice you could have implemented was to plant your wheat in March. The next best will be to plant it as soon as possible. So why is this? Local research and farmer experience have proven that as soon as the ground is above 0 degrees Celsius, you can proceed. Using a standard fungicidal seed treatment is a must to protect against early season stress. If wireworms are a concern, then using an insecticide with wireworm activity should be included. I saw on X, aka Twitter, that local researchers were out ahead of this recent snowstorm planting durum wheat. The fields were workable since they started out so dry. This makes for water-efficient plants because they go through their development stages when it's cooler. A plant uses less water to cover the soil at 15 degrees Celsius than at 25 degrees Celsius. Yes, it takes longer, but planting early means that it's still ahead of the later planted wheat. Now, you may argue that the risks of plants that get too far developed are at risk of late season frost during heading. Now, this is indeed a risk, but you need to weigh it against getting your crop germinated and filling grain before the summer heat arrives. And even germination is the second key to why ultra-early seeded wheat works. The researchers that planted ahead of the snow were planting into dry soil. When the snow melts, it will wet the top few inches of soil and hopefully a lot deeper if the melt is slow and steady. Regardless, what this means is that all the seeds get moisture, and when the temperatures get above 5 degrees Celsius, they'll germinate and emerge at the same time. No one likes to see patchy emergence. Not only does it look bad, it makes for timing for herbicide applications tougher. If you're under irrigation, it means that possible fungicide and or plant growth regulators are tougher too. We have many climatic regions, from foothills to the prairies. You'll know your zone best and you can make the decision on this. But keep in mind, you never get everything planted ultra early. Starting early isn't about reaching the optimum. It's about getting it all done before you miss the moisture. If you're able to get a winter crop planted this past fall, you're ahead. It will head early and beat much of the summer heat. If any crop is at risk of a late spring frost, this is it. In my experience, I've never seen a crop lost from an early season frost. Again, you know your area best, so go by your experience. I've had questions about what happens if the seed of a winter cereal is planted and did not germinate. While I've no direct experience with this, I've been reading up on it and I found that although it is not ideal, the winter crop will germinate at the first moisture above 0 degrees Celsius. It will still produce a crop, and it appears that even just the seed sitting in the soil is enough. It's possible that even just taking up some moisture and then going through the freeze is enough. So my advice is don't discount it in the spring just because it didn't germinate. Do all your other seeding first and then evaluate it. Another crop that can benefit from ultra early seeding is camelina. I've seen it come and go as a promising new crop on the prairies, but it seems to be making a comeback. A limited amount of the winter variety was planted this fall. The spring variety will be available to try this year and is much more tolerant of cold than canola or mustard. The advice I've been given is to plant it as early as possible. Now, I don't have experience with it, but until farmers try it, it's hard to know. It matures very early, which is late June or early July. So again, it beats the main heat of the summer. I wouldn't try huge acres, but it's worth considering in a dry year. You'll notice that I haven't mentioned any biological products. I spend my time investigating regenerative agriculture systems, and I've yet to find anything that can outperform good agronomic practices in the field. Many of these products work well in the lab, but they seem to fail in the field. You'll also notice that I recommended a standard insecticidal and fungicidal treatment. The research has been conducted using these products, and so I'm only confident recommending them. Biologicals just don't have the third-party research behind them. Until they do, I can't recommend them based on farmer testimonials and product websites. So for all the money you could spend on them, I'd encourage you to consider alternatives. Moving to the long-term planning that I was talking about, consider ways to leave more stubble on the landscape. Stripper headers are gaining popularity again. It's a simple concept. Instead of taking most of the plant through the combine, just strip the head off and leave as much standing stubble as possible. Making it work can be challenging, especially with large crops, but it does have potential. While this can help trap more snow, it appears that the greater effect is water use efficiency. Crops growing in tall stubble aren't exposed to as much wind, and the soil doesn't lose as much water to evaporation. In a wet cycle, this could be a problem, but in the current drought cycle, this could be just what's needed. Fallow is a consideration this year. I know it doesn't work well for crop insurance and cash flow, but it might be something to think about. Fallow does store more water than growing a crop, but it comes with the drawback of contributing to soil salinity. This is because evaporated water draws up salts and deposits them on or near the surface. Salts affect the plant's ability to take up water and nutrients. While white patches on the surface are the telltale signs of salt, a small increase may not show directly, but it could be a hidden hunger affecting your crops. So only a soil test will help you to see where you are. If fallow makes sense on some of your acres, I'd consider a cover crop grown at some point in the season. It could be something grown in the spring, but if you can establish something now, you'd likely have enough moisture to try growing a crop. Instead, use a fallow period to be ready to seed a warm season species in the midsummer or a cool season species in the late summer. So why would you do this? If the cover crops use the same amount of water as would be evaporated off, you're ahead. Water through a plant adds energy, which is sugars from photosynthesis, and organic matter to the system. Water evaporated off the soil surface pulls up the salts, and when there's no living roots to add exudates to the soil, it forces the microbes to break down organic matter for energy, leading to a net loss of organic matter. If you have cattle, this could also provide some fall grazing opportunities. Now, if you're considering this, the off-calf or the S-CAP programs can help offset the cost of seed and seeding. Each program has its pluses and minuses. So there's links in the descriptions for these programs if you want to look at them. If you don't have time for that or want some clarity, get a hold of me and I can help you navigate them. Now, I don't make any money promoting the programs, but my fees for working with you can be rolled into the application. Besides that fact, I'm interested in helping people try new things that should have a net benefit to the farm. The funding just helps get over the startup costs of trying a new practice and getting independent agronomy advice. If you want to dive even deeper, why not check out my new book? There's a chapter in it specifically covering what to do when the rains don't come. It's called Practical Regeneration, and it's available anywhere you buy books. Search for it or go to my website for links and more. So thanks for listening, and if you're not already subscribed, please hit that button now. Also consider subscribing to my newsletter with your email or on LinkedIn. It's just once a month and it gets past all the social media algorithms. If you'd like to see a few interesting articles a week about Regen Ag, check out my group on WhatsApp. A link to that is in the description as well. I'll talk to you again next time.